Hey guys, Standing Simmer here today, and welcome back to the channel for another speed build here in The Sims 4. So guys, I was really wanting to build another of these like mid-century modern style houses. I don't know if you guys caught one of my more recent Not So Berry updates, but it was when I was rounding off the Peach generation. In fact, this would have gone up last weekend. So in case you didn't catch that, I have my Sims currently in that save playing in a house that I found on Tumblr. And by the way, didn't know that Tumblr building scene was so well populated. There is just some amazing talent over there that never sees places like YouTube and Twitch because the builders are just Tumblr builders and that's where they share their content, whether it be by tray file download and or gallery download. Regardless, there's some pretty amazing builders over on Tumblr. So if you're looking for some pretty cool stuff, I highly recommend you check places like that as well as other places that typically you would find speed builds. Anyways, so my family over there was playing in a house that was built by somebody on Tumblr, and I talked about that more in the video and like where to find it and all that kind of stuff. But long story short, the build is this amazing mid-century modern style, and it's so bright and so colorful and just so well cluttered and detailed, and honestly it just inspired the heck out of me. Like I saw that house and I was playing in that house and I just wanted to build in this style. And so that is heavily where the inspiration for this build today is coming from. The size and shape and the details and all that, they're completely different, but what pushed me in the direction of wanting to build a mid-century modern home was definitely that house, like so much so. So this house today, guys, we are building in Oasis Springs, and as you guys might know, a lot of the more recent mid-century modern home builds that have come across the interwebs, at least the ones that I've seen, been pretty well concentrated over in Del Sol Valley. Of course, that was due to the release of Get Famous and all the brand new mid-century modern home, like I've heard it also referred to as California Craftsman style items being released in that pack. So the addition of that pack to the game kind of brought a lot of new inspiration for that style, but of course because Del Sol Valley was the new world at that time when the pack came out, and of course still is the newest world at this time added to the game, we kind of all wanted to be building over in Del Sol Valley. And so I have not yet built a mid-century modern home in Oasis Springs, which, guys, I don't know for sure if I can put this kind of label on Oasis Springs, but it is probably, in all the worlds we have, like top 3 favorite for me. Maybe top 2. I don't know if I could quantify, well, let me think. For sure Windenburg is a top favorite. I would put it in the top 3 hands down, perhaps even my most favorite world, and then Oasis Springs is up there really close. Willow Creek is fine. I'm not a massive fan of Willow Creek just as a whole. I mean, it has a lot of like, you know, base game Sims 4 vibes, which obviously Oasis Springs is also base game, but you know what I mean. A lot of the other worlds are not really as much like my scene. Not quite as much. Like Del Sol Valley is fine. The views, especially in the pinnacles, are really good. I'm really kind of tired of having my Sims live down in like the Mirage Park area though, that is for sure. But honestly, Oasis Springs is actually a really nice world. I know people complain about the lighting and not really enjoying the lighting very much, but I actually kind of like the lighting. I don't know what it is, guys. Like, you might think I'm crazy and all that kind of stuff, but I really enjoy it quite a lot. So I was very excited to both have the additional opportunity to have my Sims live here in Oasis Springs by building this house. I'll kind of get to who I'm building this house for here in just a moment, and it'll make sense, like the color choices and all that kind of stuff. But I was really excited to have build them something to live in Oasis Springs again. Not only that, but also to allow myself the chance to place a mid-century modern home build in somewhere other than Del Sol Valley. So that's a very long rundown of what we're doing today. The inspiration for this house as a whole, and again the color choices that I made, was mainly focused around the blue generation of Not So Berry. So if you guys once again have been keeping up with my Not So Berry challenge, you'll know that this last weekend I rounded off Peach generation, which is the 8th generation of Not So Berry, and moving on into green. Now, most of the time playing this challenge, I've been a little bit at least ahead of my updates in terms of gameplay. So where I am in the update as it goes up each week is I'm usually just at least a little bit further on beyond that. And that is definitely still the case in this set of updates here and where I am in my personal gameplay. I'm definitely to the point where I would start to need something for blue generation, like not quite yet, but I'm getting pretty close. And since I was really inspired to build anyway, I thought that I may as well build something that could be well suited for Blue Generation of Not So Berry. So a little quick rundown on Blue Gen Not So Berry, just in case you're not familiar with it. The main points to consider are that, of course, it is the last generation of Not So Berry. I didn't build anything at all for Green Gen. I found a house that I loved a lot for Green Generation, which ironically enough is in the Mirage Park area of Del Sol Valley. Now, I didn't have to place it there. That's just where it was built, and it fits the surroundings really well there. And at the time of placing it, I was like, oh yeah, you know, it's been a few sim families since I lived over there. Let's just place it over here. And now I'm sick to death of that area of the world all over again. Regardless, I haven't actually built anything for Green Gen because I found a perfect home for them like right off the bat. And then moving on into Blue Generation, which like I said, I'm kind of getting pretty close, not quite there yet, but pretty close. Blue Gen is the last gen of Not So Berry, and the little rundown, like I promised you guys a second ago, is more that Blue Gen is supposed to be a critic. So with the critic career that came with City Living, I believe you can be an arts critic or a food critic. So I don't know exactly yet which direction I'm gonna head with her. However, I tried to suit this house well for either one. Of course, you don't have to have your Blue Generation Not So Berry heir live in this house. It's just, once again, kind of an explanation for the particular color scheme that I chose, not only for the outside, but also some elements of the inside. Like, there are just nice, like, little cool blue tones kind of chilling around everywhere inside this house. And I was also kind of having a struggle as to how exactly to color the outside of this house. I was actually talking with some of my friends on Discord while I was building the exterior of this house, and of course putting on the wallpapering and the paneling and all that kind of stuff. And I was complaining so much, like they were probably tired of hearing me talk about how much I didn't know what to do with the outside of the house. So I did kind of skip around a little bit, try to make the footage a little bit more concise compared to what was actually happening in real life, which was, once again, a lot of indecision as to exactly what to do with this house. And I was struggling just a little bit, but we got there in the end, which is all that matters. So the fact that I was creating it for Blue Generation kind of narrowed down my choices. I sort of wanted to do the outside in a blue color, but didn't really exactly know how to do that in a classy manner. Like, I didn't want it to just look gaudy. You know what I mean? That's something that you can get to pretty easily. I feel like with Not So Berry, you can kind of just cross into like over the top territory with almost no provocation whatsoever. And so I was trying to keep it looking somewhat normal to the surroundings. Like, you know, your average sim family could live here and it not be that big of a deal that the outside is blue. You know, that's kind of what I was going for, more or less. And so I spent a good little bit of time kind of playing around with the outside, trying to get it to the point where I was comfortable moving on into the inside. I tend to do this a lot in my builds, but what I like to do is make sure that I have the basic structure of both the inside and the outside done at somewhat of the same time. That way, like, there's stuff set up outside and kind of ready to go for me to finalize all the landscaping. Actually, in this house, I did a lot of the landscaping prior to moving to the interior. I'd already done the floor plan though, which is kind of the kicker for me because I want to make sure that the shape of the outside of the house as it stands before I finalize the exterior is such that it will support like a somewhat normal floor plan and living area type, you know? So that's like a teeny tiny tip that I didn't obviously come up with myself. I've actually heard other people say that too, but if you're building and you're kind of struggling with the sequence of events with like what to do and when, I like to make sure that the outside shape of the house is finalized kind of around the same time that I'm doing the floor plan too. And that way you know that all the things you want to fit inside the house can be fit inside the house, and that you don't end up with like this really weird floor plan that you have to finagle around a lot of times because you've already finalized the outside of the house. I don't know if that's making any sense, but that's kind of the general, you know, the general outline, I guess, in which I build my builds. And so when it comes to the interior of the house, actually, exterior and interior, there's kind of like a fair balance of oranges and blues, because in my mind, orange is a pretty nice complementary color to blue. Yellow would also be another color I feel like that would go well with blue. I don't know too much about like interior design as a whole. I've never studied anything like architecture or interior design. I do not know much about colors and the way that they go together, other than that I put a couple of colors down and I say, oh, that looks really good. Or I look at it, I'm like, oh no, that's horrific. Let's do something else. That's pretty much the extent of my knowledge when it comes to colors. But in my mind, those couple of colors kind of fit together fairly well. And so when it comes to the interior of this house and the exterior as well, you'll notice like pops of blues and oranges, not only on the exterior, the siding, which of course is more blue than anything. But then in the landscaping, I tried to pull in pops of orange, and then that orange I tried to carry into the interior as well. And so you'll see that color kind of crop up quite a few times, namely in the kitchen. The counters, the main base counters are all in orange and a white color kind of mixed together. I was trying really hard. Like I said, the house that this was inspired by, that kind of kicked me in the direction of building something that was mid-century modern in Oasis Springs. The inspiration for it was a very well cluttered house. Like, I feel like I took a little bit more time than usual trying to clutter up certain areas of this house. Not everything. I still don't consider this to be like a massively cluttered house. I know people that do more cluttered homes on a much more regular basis than I even attempt. But that was kind of what I was going for. Once again, inspired by this other house that I was playing in here just recently. So I was trying to pull in lots of pops of bright colors and make sure that there was clutter kind of sitting around everywhere. I imagine this to be for a family. Like I said, I'm building it for Blue Generation Not So Berry, but also knowing that at the point where I am in my gameplay, my sim doesn't have any kids yet. So I don't know like what the dynamic of her and her spouse and children is going to be just yet. With Blue Generation Not So Berry, there's kind of like some steamy stuff that has to go on, like the sim has to have an affair that kind of pushes them into guilt that they live with for the rest of their life, and then they then channel that guilt back into more of like a positive energy of trying to be the best parent and spouse that they can be. So that's like the driving factor behind Blue Generation Not So Berry. I have no idea yet how I'm gonna play that, but just to give you that kind of background, so they're like the ideal parent and spouse. They have the parenting aspiration, have to master that eventually. I already mentioned the career and all that kind of stuff, but being that they have the parenting aspiration and they also have to adopt at least one child, I figured that at least this would be a good starting place for a house that the Blue Generation could live in. Technically, it only has 2 bedrooms at the moment. However, there is a 3rd bedroom area that could be turned into a bedroom. That's kind of like a non-essential area right now. It's more of just like a leisurely kind of hanging out type room. It'd be good if you had a larger family and you wanted to like have a separate space to the living room to just kind of chill. That area is centered over where the garage, it's kind of like the mock garage area. We're not even to that point just yet because it's on the opposite side of the house, but just wanted to let you guys know that technically this is a 2-bedroom house because that's how many bedrooms I furnished in this home. It also has 2 bathrooms, one that is like a main bathroom for anybody that could use it, anybody that needs to use it, and then there's an ensuite off the master. So 2 furnished bedrooms, 2 bathrooms total at the moment. But very easily you could turn the area that is going to be the kind of family room area, the garage, into a bedroom. All you'd have to do is remove the archway that I put there, put a door instead, and you could probably fit like 2 or 3 kids like of a similar age in that room, no problem. And so I tried to build it for a family that would start off in this house with maybe fewer kids and then add to their family as they go, but they could technically still stay in this house, if that makes any sense at all. That's kind of what I was going for. And so it's a pretty neat house. I'm excited to play in it. I say that somewhat frequently about my builds, and I never mean that in like a patting myself on the back kind of a way. I really don't think that highly of my own builds like in like a bragging type sense. I'm proud of them by the time I share them, because you better believe that there are quite a few builds, like especially across the course of me having done YouTube, that I have not only started, not only gotten midway through, but finished in some cases, and then decided never to share them because I walked out of it feeling like this is just really not at all what I envisioned. It doesn't represent my style. I'm not really in love with the final product kind of a thing. Usually by the time that my builds are being shared with you guys in this forum here on YouTube, with me having like put in the work of a voiceover and editing, you better believe that for the most part I'm very, very happy with them. So that's just kind of like the overreaching type situation we got going on right there. I don't know if we're to this point yet in the footage, but there was a kind of something a little different that I did with this house in particular. I added a sunroom. Well, more like a skylight that's centered over the area where the living room is right now. It's not technically a sunroom. I guess I kind of misspoke there, but skylight area. I've never added this type of a skylight to my builds before. It's one that's kind of like butted in by the other roof areas, if that makes sense. And so it has other regular roofing on all 4 sides. But this shines down over the living room area in particular. When I was decorating this house, the lighting that it provided for this area of the house was just gorgeous. Like it was really, really pretty. Really like the way that that looks. I hope that in actual gameplay it won't end up looking too dark, because I try to place my lighting on the ceiling specifically in a realistic manner. So I'm not gonna put lighting over, like just underneath the area where the sunroof, or I keep calling it a sunroof, the skylight area. I'm not gonna place a light directly underneath that, because in real life you probably wouldn't be able to have a ceiling light attached to an area that's just pure glass from the ceiling up into the roof. And so I had to position it a little bit off to the side, and then put other lighting in the side part of the room that actually does have regular ceiling. And I tried to position some regular lamps over there in that corner as well. I could have tried to see what this would look like in the nighttime area to make sure that it had enough lighting, but I completely forgot to do that. And once again, at this point where I am in my gameplay, I'm not yet utilizing this house for my blue generation for Not So Berry. So I guess we'll kind of see when it comes down to it. I'm sure it'll be just fine. The lighting is more than adequate, I would imagine, especially because I use those saucer lights that I always use. They put out the best light that I've seen in the game. I feel like, to an extent, my lighting choices in the game is, for building especially, is just kind of, it's a little bit unoriginal in that I don't always take the time to put more realistic looking lighting on the ceilings. I try to use a lot of stand and table lamps and kind of distribute those somewhat naturally throughout the build. But when it comes to ceiling lights, I used to layer saucer lights and then regular lights as well. But to be honest with you, when I'm playing in a house, that's just a lot of stuff that sits over top of the areas you're trying to interact with in a house. Like, that's a lot of stuff that's right in your field of vision when you're playing. And I don't know, just like using the saucer lights and sizing them down just a little bit is usually just good enough for me. So you guys will have to let me know if that's something you even think about when it comes to building. Do you like your houses to have more realistic lighting, especially when it comes to ceiling lighting? Or are you okay with just like, you know, a couple like saucer lights here and there? One thing I do try to do with the saucer lights though is I do try to position them somewhat naturally within the rooms themselves where they are. So what that means to me is more like centered lighting. So you don't just like put it off to the side. It's kind of more in the center. And if you use more than one of them, you try to align them somewhat normally. So that way, at least that part of it kind of looks a little bit more normal, even if that type of light wouldn't be a natural-ish type of light. Like, just looking at the kind of lights that I have in my house, for example, they're definitely more lights that like fully stick off the ceiling. Like, we're not talking chandelier or anything, but we're talking like just like regular type lamp lights that do attach to the ceiling, as well as like ceiling fan lights and things like that. That's actually a lot of what I have in my house, to be honest with you. Nearly every room has like a ceiling fan with a light attached to it. Speaking of the ceiling fans too, I know that those were added in the game in, I think it was the Caribbean patch update to the game, so it's free. So the ceiling fans though are items I almost never find myself using. There are a couple of things like that in the game that when they first came out, I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. And then like I've almost never touched them. I've probably put them in one for sure, maybe 2 builds, and that's pretty much it. The main reason for that is kind of what I already talked about earlier, which is that when you're playing the game, that constant circulating fan motion, it just like draws my eye all the time, and it's a little bit distracting when you're just kind of playing with your Sims. Like, you know, when you're playing with, especially like a larger household, you're playing with like a bit of a larger household, and all of a sudden you're looking over and like you're trying to find where your Sim is and what they're doing, and like you're distracted by this circulating motion over here where the fan is. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody else, but I feel like that I accommodate somewhat in my builds for things that I experience during gameplay, which I feel like to an extent could be a benefit of a builder who also plays the game, because that way you know what you prefer, at least during gameplay. That might not apply to any of the rest of you, but I know that when I play the game, I don't really enjoy like the ceiling fans, for example, as much. Same thing with like some of the more normal lighting. So as much as it can make the house look like more of a real house, it's just not something that I enjoy when I'm actually using that house. To be completely honest with you, I have no idea where that whole little like side conversation, like that whole little ramble just came from, but there you go. So as far as this week goes, I almost never really give like schedule updates in my videos for the upcoming week, but you guys have probably noticed that my schedule the last few weeks has not only changed, you probably already know that because I put out an update video, I've been talking about it like here and there, but for the most part, my schedule this last couple of weeks has really worked out well to be the 2 to 3 videos a week that I intended it to be. So if I ever put out an extra video, a third video in a week, know that it is a bonus video. So like last week, we did a build on Tuesday, a build on Thursday, and then a current household update on Saturday. So that's like a bonus week because I somehow managed to find the extra time to build and produce, so to speak, a secondary build video or just like a bonus video as a whole. And so this week is not going to be that way. I somehow have managed to end up with like almost no time, not only on the weekend prior, which is when I'm recording this, but just this last week in general has been so busy. I don't know what the deal is, but it feels like I'm trying to do all my normal stuff, you know, like it's just work during the week, Monday through Friday, and I don't feel like I've had like a ton of extra stuff to do in the weekends. It just feels like I've been extra busy this week, and I don't have a whole lot to show for it. You guys have those weeks sometimes when it's just like, it just feels like unproductive busyness, you know, which is not my kind of busyness. If I'm gonna be like stretched thin and running back and forth between places, I'd rather be getting something done. I feel like that's a pretty normal way to feel about that whole situation, but this has definitely not been one of those kind of weeks. Like, as in, I feel like I've just been busy all week long and not had time to do hardly anything. So that as a result of that, there won't be a bonus video this upcoming week. So we're probably just looking at today's speed build and then a current household update later on in the week, which I somehow managed to have already recorded, which is fantastic. Like I said, that's kind of showing how far ahead I am in my gameplay. I've been doing 2 current household updates per generation of Not So Berry, and this will be the first one for green. I'm really excited to finish off that generation, more just like the challenge as a whole, because I feel like I've been playing not only Not So Berry, but this particular family for a very long time. We're approaching something in the realm of like 14 generations. No, it's like 15 generations at this point of the same family. Not in the same save, but because I've had to move saves twice, but something in that general realm. And I feel like I'm very much ready to move on to something different. A viewer and someone who has her own YouTube channel, Firebird, which by the way, I will try to link her channel down in the description. She doesn't speak English when she does her voiceovers, but she is a really, really amazing builder. And I watch her speed builds just for that because I get inspiration from watching her build. I'll try to link her channel down in the description below, but she actually sent me a message over on Discord and gave me like a lot of ideas for different challenges and such to do following my finishing of Not So Berry, and I wanted to kind of open that up to you guys too. I probably will ask in the last update I do for Not So Berry, but if there are any challenges, or honestly, I'm more looking to get my hands on like not necessarily legacies, but more challenges for the next thing I play. I was actually thinking about 100 baby challenge because I've never successfully done 100 baby. I think I lasted something in the realm of like 7 kids and then called it quits because I was like, this is driving me insane. But that was before I used like custom content or mods or just like things that I feel like kind of enhance gameplay to an extent that might be able to make that sort of thing somewhat bearable. I think it'd also be kind of fun to share my progress with that with you guys as well, like I've been doing with these other current household updates. I don't know, if you guys have any ideas for anything like that, feel free to drop them in the comments below because I always like to hear from you guys just in general. That is one thing that I kind of wanted to just like, this is just so random, guys, but we're here like toward the end of the video, so if you're still listening at this point, then I feel like you're the kind of person that wouldn't mind me like asking something like this. When it comes to like asking the viewer to like make sure to leave a like, or you know, whatever the generic phrase is, right? Like give a like on the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't, you know, subscribed yet. I feel so awkward saying stuff like that, but I feel like sometimes it's good to have that reminder because honestly, before I started YouTube, I had zero idea of the impact that leaving a like or putting a comment on a video could mean to the creator. Like I had no idea how much that meant, like for people to take the time to leave a comment. So how do you guys feel about me saying something like that in my videos? Will you hate me too much if I do some like line at the end of like, oh, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy it? Like, oh, I mean, you know, I kind of feel awkward even doing that, but at the same time, I do think that putting that reminder out there is a good thing, not because like people who would just never like or comment would do so, but just like as a reminder to those of you who actually would would. I don't know, I feel like kind of awkward even talking about that, to be honest with you. But like I say, it's something that before I had a YouTube channel, I literally never thought about, and might not be a bad idea to just kind of throw it out there from time to time, because I do love hearing from you guys, and it does actually help from YouTube's perspective if you rate the video, whether like or dislike. I obviously, you know, the like is great, but a dislike at the same time could let me know perhaps what things I could change, or, you know, if there was something that I could do a little bit differently. It's actually very vague. It doesn't really help me that much at all as far as knowing what it was that caused the dislike. But you know, it's still a rating, so it points me in a certain direction. So that's just such a random little ramble to kind of end this video off on, but it's kind of been on my mind here recently, just kind of thinking about maybe throwing that reminder in from time to time. I don't know, let me know what you guys think about that, but regardless, we are at the end of the build, so I need to kind of start wrapping things up, Mariah. Like, I could just ramble there for a while, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this build. I know I enjoyed putting it together, really a lot of fun, love the color, cannot wait to play in this build. Guys, I do want to say thank you so much for tuning in today for this build. I appreciate you guys being here just in general. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. In fact, I hope you're having the best of days, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye!